There's a color I love to the ages above, the good old Carver blue. We didn't know we had stole that from Bishop.
And it was like whatever was needed, you learned to do it. You just filled in and you just kept going with it.
You see, we dealt with families. We taught families. We were close with the parents. The parents were concerned. They became part of our lives.
Like in first grade, we always had Miss Bolton wrap the maypole. We wrapped the maypole forever.
Carver was so important that even in my professional career as an entrepreneur now, owning my own business, that I know that I couldn't have gotten my basics unless I had come through Carver.
And one thing I liked about it, you can come to school anytime you want to come. You can come at lunchtime, you know. I shouldn't have said that. You can come at lunchtime. If you didn't want to come in the morning, you just come at lunchtime.
I guess the most fun we had was our first year in chemistry. Jasper Parker brought in a live frog, and the frog got loose in chemistry class, so that sent the girls running and screaming. But Jasper was always the one that kept the class lively and everything.
Carver, to me, school was like a playground to me at that time. I loved coming to school. I wouldn't want to miss school for nothing in the world.
We were so lucky, the class of 1965. Our parents worked hard to be able to take us on a senior trip. We had an opportunity to go to Houston and to Galveston, and one of the most memorable events of that senior trip was going to the Astrodome. The Astrodome had opened that baseball year, and we were one of the few people who got a chance to go there. And I'll never forget Mr. George Washington, who was one of the sponsors with us, getting so excited from that scoreboard, and the scoreboard would say, win, 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 and he would say, fight, 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 and we laughed, and we had a great time.
My fondest memory of George Washington Carver is that everybody knew everybody. The elementary school was in one part, we had a middle school section, and we had the high school section, which was the big kids, if you kind of knew where I was from a small standpoint.
I remember the junior and senior proms that we had at that time, when all the schools in the district were invited to your junior and senior prom.
We lived right across the street from the school. I mean, right across. So what I'm saying is that the school teachers, we didn't have telephones back then when I was coming up, right? Baby time. And the teachers, if they had to give a note or so, they know that Lulabelle lived across the street, so why give her a note when the teachers could go right past her to go home?
My mom and dad lived right down on the corner, which I never had to go far from school. Didn't have far to walk, and sometimes I would always get caught in the backyard when I skipped school. I got caught hanging out clothes in the backyard, but that was all fun. And Daddy didn't get us too much for that. As long as sometimes the teachers kind of took care of me. They didn't tell on me, but they would tell me that they saw me in the backyard.
Well, just as she said, the first thing was to learn how to sew a straight line, a straight seam, I think. And that was to make a cup towel, hem it on all sides, do an apron, which required pulling to make your gathering. And so, so you remember that, huh?
Mrs. Isaac, just really special and dear to me because she actually taught me a lot of things in homemaking that I will never, ever forget. I would call them life lessons. Things that you need to know that perhaps you had not been exposed to.
When society was saying no, no, no to us, our teachers were saying yes, 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 you can do anything. So I held that as a resounding, we can do anything despite what society dictated to us.
Everything that I have learned from first grade through set a basis of discipline and commitment, creativity, and a focus, a purpose, and a direction for what it was I needed to do.
From the first grade all the way up until the 8th grade, and we was inspired by the teachers, The teacher was just like parents to us, fathers and mothers, and what we did at the school, we learned from our homestead, because if we did something bad at the school, it got back to the house before we got back home. And
I enjoyed Carver School so much. The kids did so much for me. I learned so much from them. It was a learning experience to me, I'm sure as well it was to them. But it was an enjoyable experience.
We had great teachers. I'm amazed when I look at the things that I have in the classroom today. I have a projection system from the ceiling where I can just write and it's projected. My students can see it. Back then, we had a chalkboard, and I guess they were lucky to have chalk. And that taught me in my career as teaching that it's not all of the things you have, it's what you bring to teaching. Those people that we had at Carver brought a love for teaching and love for children to their experience.
As I sit here today, I reflect back on the teachers at Carver. And as has probably previously been stated, I believe they lay the foundation for the phrase, "No child left behind," because they pushed us and they drilled us to be the best that we could be.
I'm a firm believer that if you try and you trust in the Lord and you believe that you can achieve, you can do whatever you set out to do. So I never had a problem with my students learning, and they always said to me that I was just like a little pecking chicken, because I know for a fact that I was not going to teach my kids the wrong way. And by the way, I did teach American history, world history, Negro history, basketball, the girls' basketball, the cheerleaders. Sometimes I worked in Mr. Courtney's office. Sometimes I assisted in the library. In those days, wherever you were sent, you worked in that position, and it didn't necessarily have to be that you were qualified in that field. If you took that class, you taught that class.
At Carver, the teachers were sure that every student that passed through there was going to read. Unlike maybe today, where some of my kids slip through the crack, not quite able to read, at Carver, we were going to be able to read, if nothing else.
I learned a lot about public events, and I remember during some of our sessions that we would have maybe 5 to 10 minutes and we would go over public events. And that's the first time that I had heard of Mahatma Gandhi and probably Dr. Martin Luther King. And this was just a very, very interesting period and time for me, and just very, very enjoyable, because it gave me a love of geography and history. And maybe that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to go out, get away from Garland, and experience some of the things of the world.
What I remember is the quality of the students, the professionalism even of the students when they were given assignments, when they debated. I teach at a university, and I see students in the university that couldn't compare with the students of Carver.
One of the things, the reason athletics was so important to us at the time was, because of the limited things we could do at that time.
We didn't have batons, and we had to use broomsticks, and we didn't have, our uniforms were torn, and we had to use tape to tape them, together.
Then you played offense and defense, and if there was any kind of an event during our homecoming, instead of being with the team, you had to go and march in with the queen with your football uniform on. So, because we didn't have very many people.
I watched great athletes growing up, like Joe Boy Walls, Jasper Parker. I watched K.I. King, and all those great, Michael Hicks, Chester Johnson. All of those guys I wanted to emulate, because they were hard-working athletes that used athletics as a stepping stone to greater things.
I remember playing a football game in Kaufman, Texas. Wintertime, very cold. I remember a young man that was injured, got his leg broken. refused to come out of the game, asked us to do him a favor, have an ambulance waiting for him when the game was over, and take him to a warm hospital. A young man by the name of Jasper Parker.
I really like playing football. I started playing football in the 9th grade, and we won several, well, not several, I guess about 4 district championship games, but we never did get to go to state, and I hate that. As in, we had a falling out with Mineola about who crossed to 20 more times than the other, and they couldn't make a decision on who was telling the truth, so they just disqualified both of us and went on with the game.
But we had some real good times, and I guess we were poor because the girls had to use, if the girls had big feet and the boys had large feet, then sometimes we'd have to shuffle our shoes. Although we were wearing Chuck Converse Taylor shoes, we still didn't have enough shoes, so I thought that was kind of neat.
In basketball, Avon Walls and Alfred Dirk and J.C., Michael Brown used to play basketball, and Mr. Swinton was the coach at that time. And if they would get behind, they would pull everybody out and put the B string in there. And the B string was George Kirby, Jimmy Wilson, and who? Roy Armstrong. And we get in there and catch them back up, and then next thing you know, we go back to the bench. So we had made up our mind that we wasn't gonna catch up no more. And then Mr. Swinton said, "You coconut boys, y'all need to go in there and play that ball and catch them up so I can put my 18 back in." And that's what, we never did make the 18, but we always kept the 18 to win.
Used to love, when we was playing the game, but you would be surprised at some of the things that went on our way to the game. You thought we were on our way to some kind of a picnic because we used to have a lot of fun.
We played Cleveland one year. He was doing good out there in Cleveland. We had having a good football game, and all of a sudden the fights broke out. Little brother went out there, run through the man and beat him with the bone, then took the man's helmet. The officials stopped the game for a whole like 15 minutes trying to find him. He would have hid behind the bench with the helmet he didn't hit. They couldn't even throw him out of the game because they couldn't find it. But as of the day, if I'm not mistaken, he still got that helmet.
Carver School was played a very pivotal role in the African American community. East Garland was the important part of the Carver School history.
Because it was one thing about the black communities. You know how it always say that it takes a village to raise a child?
Yes.
Well, that's exactly what we had, because if our parents wanted to know anything about what we were doing, they could ask the neighbor, or they could ask our teachers, the people at church. Everybody was really involved.
And at that time, everybody in the community we just centered around our church church and school. So if there was anything that we needed and we couldn't afford it, well, somehow or another at that time, I didn't know nothing about a PTA. We just had mothers that would help keep people in the school that needed it.
I guess my fondest memories of being at Carver is just the closeness of the family there. There was a family there like no other. All the teachers were concerned about all the students there when we were at Carver.
We really had teachers who not only taught in the school, but they were a part of our community. They were a part of your lives. They lived next door. They lived down the street.
Because it was more of a family type school. It was more of a family. Everybody knew everybody. It was close knitted. All the kids in the school was close knitted. And it wasn't the problem that kids have today.
I loved Carver. I loved the students at Carver. I was like everybody's sister. The walls fed me, everybody took to me.
Oh, everybody.
They did my hair. They took care of me.
When you learn to take care of each other, you learn to help each other, you grow up that way in school, it passes all the way down. So if one made it, all made it.
The era of Carver was a different time. Some of us may look back on it less memorably than others. But I recognize that now, having taught school and have seen the lack of involvement from parents, as a time that we were carried around on a pillow and didn't know it. Because truly, you had the community, the church, and the school. Those three entities worked together to develop us to be the people that we are today.
It was a hurtful time when they decided to close the school, but we knew that it was for the best.
When we knew that integration was going to happen, it was not a choice anymore, our teachers prepared us. I can still vividly recall Miss Tony saying, you're gonna learn this, you're gonna know this, because when you go to that white school, you're gonna know these things that you're supposed to know.
I completed my first semester of college as a straight A student. And I don't say that to flatter myself, but I say that because of the teachers at Carver. It's because of them that I was able to compete with the best of the best. And I sit here today to say thank you for a job well done.
And when I was thinking about coming here, I thought about diamonds in the rough. What do I mean by diamonds in the rough? Whatever was thrown at Carver, whatever physical and fiscal situation the students or the faculty at Carver were in, you could see the diamond shining. It made no difference if you had a machine or if you had a shovel or a pitch or what have you. The diamond showed forth.
You know, it's just so much that we can talk about from back in the day, which we call it, that we don't have now. And we lost a lot of that even when they started the integration. However, we knew that, you know, there needed to be change about a lot of things.
They really carried the name on with that school, George Washington Carver, who did so much with the peanuts. So these people have done so much with what they had to work with, because I know what they had.
My mom and dad always told us, my brother and I, that we are all God's children. And nothing can keep you from doing anything. Just remember, you are God's children, and there is no fear of any man, because God loves everyone.
Right don't always win, truth don't always conquer lies, and everything in life is not fair. But it's part of our education to adjust to those situations. So that's what we did.